Hey, what's up guys, it's Manders. Welcome back to another video. First of all, before we get started, I'd like to apologize. You can probably hear a tractor in the background. They're doing some farm work, just ignore that. So as of about 2 weeks ago, I've owned my Charger for just over a year, and I kind of wanted to give my review of it over the past year and what I've thought about driving a Charger Pursuit specifically. Obviously Chargers in general, but more specifically the Pursuit. I think I've driven it just about 16,000 miles, which is quite a lot for a year. And I kind of wanted to go over what I do, don't like about it, whether I think you should or shouldn't get one, stuff like that. So the first thing I wanted to do was go over the history of my car specifically. This was an Oregon County police car. I'll show a picture of it here. And then it was sold at auction, and as you can tell, it wasn't very pretty. I'm kind of exposing myself here. Picture of that right here. And then a guy had bought it from auction, didn't drive it much, and then sold it to me, and I bought it when it looked like this. And then now, a little over a year later, here we are, and I love how this has turned out over this past year. I'm gonna quickly take you guys around the car and show you guys what I've done, and then I'm gonna go over 5 things I do love about the Pursuit and 5 things I do not love about the Pursuit. So starting off our tour, I have a Scat Pack hood. This is original, and I need to get it replaced because as you can tell, it's bent in that corner. It came off a parts car that was rolled. I would also like to get a new front bumper at some point, but I'm not too worried about that right now. We have 20x9 Vox Hellcat Replica 2s. I love the bronze finish on these. That's what I wanted. My car is filthy right now. Ignore that. I kind of would like to go bigger at some point and wider a little bit. As you can tell, it kind of sticks in on there. The fronts are good, but the rear has some anti-poke. Coming around more to the back of the car, I have a matte black gas cap door on there. Kind of just my preference. I don't know if I actually like it, but I put it on there once just to mess with it. We have 1.5% window tint. It's I believe it's 20% with 5% over that. It's a little too dark. I'd like to get that brighter, but it's fine for now. We have the Lux taillight wrap. I love that. It's one of my favorite things that I've done to my car. It just cleans up the look a lot. D-badge, Scat Pack spoiler on there, and the back bumper needs to be replaced, but that's fine. It's also straight piped, and it's melting my diffuser a little bit because my exhaust is bent, but that's fine. Finishing our tour of the outside of the car, I also do have the Scat Pack side skirts, which I think look a lot better than the normal Pursuit ones. They just look a little bit cleaner. But now moving on to the inside. Coming into the inside of this car, there hasn't been too much done interior-wise. I did the 8.4 screen swap, which I think cleaned up this car a lot. One of my favorite things I've done to my Pursuit. Totally recommend it. It's very easy. I can go over that later. I also put in Scat Pack seats, which you guys have seen in a previous video. I love these things. I just don't like the fact there's a Scat Pack logo on it when it's not a Scat Pack. I also swapped out the door panels with original Scat Pack door panels. I just think they cleaned up the car a little bit, look a little bit cleaner. And yeah, I believe that's it for the interior. It hasn't been too much done. I do need to replace the headliner to get rid of the light domes and stuff like that, but I'll go over the rest of that stuff later in the video. Starting off with number 1 of the 5 things I love about my Pursuit. Number 1 would have to be the power. These things come with 370 horsepower stock from the factory, and these 5.7s are very easy to add power to. They're a blast to drive. Obviously they're big, they're boats, but they are a blast to drive. I love driving it, and the power is unmatchable. The sound is unmatchable. It's just a V8 rear-wheel drive car is unmatchable in my opinion. That takes us right to number 2 on my list, which is that they are fun to drive. Like I mentioned, a V8 rear-wheel drive car is unmatchable for fun. It does very good burnouts. It's a blast to drive. It's a boat. It handles decently well, at least without, excuse me, sir. Another fun factor about these cars too is when you first buy a Pursuit, these things are neck breakers. Everybody slows down in front of you. Everybody gets out of your way. It's a blast. That also adds to the fun factor. Going straight into number 3 of things that I love about my Pursuit. I can't say that. Number 3 would have to be how cheap they are. A Pursuit is a very notoriously not good car to buy because people always say they've been beat on, they've been driven hard and things like that, they're not well maintained. I would have to disagree. I think you have to look in the right places. This one, the county that it came from, all the way in Oregon, obviously I'm here in Wisconsin, so it came a long ways. The county has been good maintaining their vehicles, and this one has been pretty obviously well maintained. I have had no issues with it over this past year and 15,000 miles. I have not had to put a dollar into it. Obviously, every dollar that I have put into it has been either preventative maintenance or upgrades. Obviously, the wheels, the hood, even oil changes, stuff like that. But you're annoying. But I have had no issues with this thing since I bought it, and obviously they're cheap to find and cheap to find parts for because it's a Charger. They're everywhere. But yeah, they're cheap to buy too because They come up on auction, they go for whatever, $8,000, $9,000, or you can find them used on Marketplace, whatever. And obviously every Charger Pursuit's gonna be different too. I think the biggest factor is where it comes from and knowing how well it was maintained. You can obviously find a cheap auction car that's gonna run like a dream, or you can pay $20,000 for one that's gonna break down the next day. But I know the big issue with these is cam and lifters. I have not had to do that yet. Obviously only 92,000 miles, so I'm sure it's coming, but as of now, it's good, no issues. It's been cheap, it's been fun, it's been reliable. Which brings me right into number 4 on my list of things that I like about my Charger Pursuit. And number 4 is going to be the uniqueness. Now there's a lot of quirky features and stuff that you gotta get used to with owning a Charger Pursuit. The biggest one for me being the column shifter. Every other Charger has a floor shifter, Pursuit's being the only one. It's not that hard to switch over, I plan to do it, but it's one of those unique features. There's a lot of those things you kind of got to get used to, like the dome light that goes red and white. And that goes throughout all the car too. There's a lot of weird things that you kind of notice going around the car that just kind of stand out, that makes it unique. You can take that as a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I think it's a good thing. I think it's kind of fun. You know, there's some little hidden features everywhere. Like, for example, you know, on these Charger Pursuits, there's a thing right there that locks and unlocks this rear door. The more you know. And now obviously with the overgrowing love for Chargers and Challenger Hellcat specifically, the Pursuit kind of sticks out as the odd younger brother of the crew. I think it's fun though. I think it's unique. Even the fact that it's got the upgraded brakes and the upgraded suspension for the police cars, specifically for the Pursuits. I think it's just a unique factor. It sticks out from the rest of the Chargers. It's unique, it's on its own. It's fun. It's like, it's cheap, it's fun. I love it. And now lastly, this goes for all Chargers, not specifically the Pursuit, is the customizability. These obviously from the factory, after they're outfitted for the Pursuits, they're very base model. There's nothing about them that's supposed to look good, perform good, very base model, and that's what makes them cheap. I think it makes it very customizable in the sense of there's so many aftermarket parts for these. I think them being such a base model car adds to the customizability. They're so much fun. There's so much you can do with them. Everything has been done to a Charger, and that's why they're fun. You know, you can take an all-wheel drive and lift it. You can take a rear-wheel drive and slam it. You know, everything can be done with these things, and I love that. I love how customizable they are. There's so much aftermarket support for these, and they are just a blast. Those are the 5 things that I love about my Charger Pursuit, and now we're gonna go to the 5 things that I don't like. Number 1 is gonna be that they're hard to work on and confusing. Obviously, it being a police car, there's lots of extra equipment that was on it, spotlights, antennas, stuff like that. And that obviously goes all throughout the car, interior included, with the computer, all the other equipment that's been in it before. It just makes them a little bit hard to work on and confusing because there's lots of extra wires and lots of extra equipment, kind of miscellaneous stuff. Also, the fact that they have different brakes and suspension makes it kind of confusing if you're doing brake work or suspension work. But yeah, number 1, I'm gonna have to say would be they're hard to work on and they're confusing. Obviously, don't let that scare you. They're still easy, you just gotta do your research, stuff like that. Also, I forgot to mention with that, on that topic of number 1, there are so many extra wires in here that have been cut and just left in the car. They're tough to pull out, so they kind of just sit in there. There's a whole wiring harness that goes from my trunk all the way into the center console. I'm gonna remove that one day, but yeah, there's just extra wires too, and you don't know what's what, you don't know what you can cut. Lots of wires that have been wire nutted together that you don't know if that can come off, stuff like that. It just requires a little extra time when you're working on stuff to make sure you have the right parts, that you're doing it right, everything like that. But that would have to be number 1. Moving on to number 2 on my list, which is that there's lots of small things you got to get used to. Obviously, it's different for every car, but there's lots of small things around the car that kind of are there. You got to get used to it. For example, this little light that's on my mirror, I have to replace the mirror. I'm going to at some point in time, but it's not big enough for me to care right now. Mine doesn't, but some cars have the spotlight holes here, antenna holes on the roof. Mine doesn't have any of those. Even stuff like this, which is lots of scratches on my back door just from officers getting in and out, and I'm sure that tool belts were hitting it and stuff like that. It's got a door ding there, which I have to get fixed, and there is a little imperfection there. It's hard to see, but there's lots of little stings and scratches around, and obviously you shouldn't expect perfect when buying a car, but these are far from perfect body-wise. Obviously they can be fixed. I'm kind of exposing myself on this one with all the small things wrong with my car, but there is just lots of imperfections you got to get used to. I don't care. I'm getting it all fixed. It'll all be painted at some point in time, obviously when the money comes around. But yeah, that'd be number 2. There's lots of small things in and out that you just got to get used to. Here, I'll even show quickly the stuff on the inside. There's lots and lots of small little issues. For example, whatever that is up there that has been stuck there. Even like small stuff like holes in the headliner, which is obviously going to be standard with every used vehicle. But they just happen to be out there specifically with the Chargers. And that takes us to number 3 on my list of things I don't like about my Charger Pursuit, which would be that they require work. Obviously, it depends on the car you buy and who you are. Some people could just buy a Pursuit from auction and never touch it and be perfectly fine. I'm not somebody like that. I like to change things on my car. You know, as you can tell, there's lots of things that have been done. But I think in order to get them to look good, they need to have some work put into them. The biggest things for me that I think completely change the car, whether you're a car guy or not, would be the 8.4 screen swap. Not a hard swap. I can do a video on it if you'd like me to, but it's a pretty easy swap. It changes the car a lot. Doesn't make it look like a base model anymore. Another thing about them that requires work is, like I previously mentioned, excuse me, sir. As I previously mentioned, it completely depends on the car that you buy from auction. You can obviously buy one that requires no work, but I would say to not expect that. If you're gonna buy one of these at auction or from anywhere, any Charger Pursuit, expect them to need work. I had a Pursuit before this, a 2012. That was an absolute nightmare. Obviously it was older, stuff like that, but I did not like that car. I got rid of it. And I got this thing, which has been a dream. And I think, like I said, I think it's just a matter of buying right. If you buy the right car, it can be an absolute dream. You can love it. I love this car. I would not sell this thing anytime soon. But just be prepared to put the work into the car if it needs it. I think that's a good way to look at buying any car, to be honest. Just be prepared to put money into it. And if it doesn't, perfect. Like this, doesn't need any money put into it right now, and I love it. Now moving on to number 4, which I think I've kind of previously mentioned a couple times, is the fact that it's a base model car. So obviously, like once I first bought this car, the screen was a really small screen. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. They look really ugly in my opinion. And like I said, the 8.4 swap, one of the best things I've ever done in this car. I love how it looks. But anyway, base model. There's a lot of things about these base models you gotta get used to. For example, the vinyl flooring. You swapped it out for carpet. I plan to do it at some point, but for now it's the vinyl flooring. It works really well living on a farm. It's very easy to clean and stuff like that, but that's my opinion. It's just getting used to the fact that it is a base model. There's a lot of features that you don't have. For example, no heated seats. This seat isn't even power, which I guess isn't the end of the world, but there's just a lot of things that a lot of new cars have that's kind of standard that these cars do not have. It's just a matter of getting used to them. I personally don't care. I don't need all the fancy features and stuff like that. This thing doesn't get driven in winter, so I don't need heated seats. I'm perfectly fine the way it is. But yes, the fact that it's base model, I mean, you can kind of get made fun of for. Obviously, it's your car. Nobody can tell you what to do with it or what to buy. But yeah, the base model, it's a base model technically. The door panels are a lot uglier. The seats are very ugly. And you can obviously change those things out. Like I said, that goes with the customizability. It's all preference. Going into our 5th and last thing that I don't like about the Charger Pursuit, and that's how easy it is to buy wrong. I don't think I bought wrong with this thing at all. I love this thing, but as I've mentioned a couple times in this video, it's very easy to buy wrong with these. Obviously, being a car that is pretty notoriously beat on when it's in duty, at least in most case scenarios, they can have their issues, especially coming around 80, 90, 100,000 miles. I think the best mileage to buy is 70, 80,000 miles because they won't have a lot of issues then, but they'll still be old enough to where they're not going to be crazy expensive and relatively affordable. My biggest thing for this is just to do your research before you buy. Obviously, if it's a car that looks like it's been beat up, it's been beat up. From what I've always heard, a rule of thumb with this is that the smaller towns and stuff like that will always take better care of their cop cars than the bigger towns. It's all a matter of if they keep up on maintenance on it, stuff like that. Oil changes, brakes when it needs it, stuff like that. Otherwise, that all, brings it downhill, especially oil changes. The county that I bought it from, I think it's Marion County in Oregon, did a wonderful job with this. I highly doubt that's the case scenario with every car that comes from there, but just do your research. Be prepared to have issues. Overall, I would highly recommend the Pursuit. I love this car. It's been cheap. It's been fun. It's a blast to customize. There's tons of options out there for it. My biggest things with buying these is, like I mentioned, do your research, be prepared to have issues, and if it doesn't, perfect. And lastly is to not just jump into things. Drive it a little bit before you start customizing it. Make sure you like it. Make sure it's something that you want. Obviously with the market right now, these are going up in value. They're gonna come down. It always comes down. But as of now, they're going up in value, which I would say now is the wrong time to buy, but that's my opinion. Do what you want, buy whenever. But yeah. Make sure that when you're looking for one of these, you look all around, like Facebook Marketplace. I would check Craigslist, even local government auction sites, stuff like that to buy these. You can save a decent chunk of change by buying them at auction instead of trying to buy through a dealer or something like that. I don't think these go through dealers very often, but I would recommend saving a chunk of change and going to the auction. I bought it from a third party, but an auction I think would be the way to go if I ever bought another one. They do look a little intimidating on the auction sites. Obviously, like I showed you with mine, compared to like now, lots of things, they need lots of work. But I think this one turned out beautiful. I love this car. That's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something. I would recommend a Charger Pursuit. Obviously, it's your call. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Drop in the comments if I forgot anything about these things or your thoughts on them, if you have one. But yeah, with that, see you guys in the next video. I got some plans for this car coming up and some videos, so stay tuned. Catch you later.